Namaskar. Welcome to the Indian AdGeek. My name is Vishal Mehra, and this has been quite a week in the world of advertising. The Omnicom-IPG merger/acquisition is finally complete, and there are repercussions being felt globally. And that's why the theme and the discussions around today's show become even more relevant. From madmen to geezer men, today's guest proves that advertising is not just about chasing youth, it's about harnessing wisdom. Brent Rivard, partner at Geezer Agency, joins us to decode how brands can stay fresh without pretending to be 22 forever. 2 decades of building breakthrough campaigns for Budweiser, Mercedes, Nestle. This guy is a legend. Then he went to the client side, led marketing for one of the world's largest travel companies, and realized the system was broken. Now he's fixing it by building an entire agency staffed by seasoned pros with 25 plus years under their belts, creating for an audience with actual money to spend. If you have ever wondered how to make campaigns that age like fine wine instead of expired milk, you are in for a treat. Welcome to the Indian AdGeek, Brent.
Great. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. How did you and advertising happen?
How did me and advertising happen? It's funny, but it was one of the rare things that when I was young, I always knew that I wanted to be an ad guy. And I was a bit of an entrepreneur early days. But what I did with the companies that I started was I was always just focused on, writing the ads, the strategies, the executions, and, playing everything, creative person, strategist, account guy, all at the same time. So I always knew I wanted to be in advertising. So, I grew up in a small town. I'm actually Canadian. I live in Manhattan, but I grew up in a small town called Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, where, funny enough, the BlackBerry was invented. Just outside of Toronto, about an hour and a half, and went after a small firm, got my break, and then my first real job in advertising, which took us to the big city, was at Saatchi and Saatchi, and joined the Toyota business. So that's how I started out, and the rest is history.
Tell us the story of the moment you decided to launch Geezer Creative and why that felt like the right move at this stage of your career.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the idea of Geezer, funny enough, was actually Karen McKinley's, my partners, who then found John Kieselhorst, my other creative partner, and then we found each other. So it's funny that we were all kind of working along the same brief, if I can call it that, ironically, that what's next? What would we start if we could? What's going on in the marketplace? And all the while, what we've been watching for a long, long time, and we're seeing it still continuing to happen, is consolidation of agency nameplates into big holdcos. And in the process, their refusal to change their business model has led to only one way to make your margins, right? Which is to cut costs. And in that left all the most the most talented creative account and producers and strategists out of work, because it's easy to cut the person that's making all the money and replace them with somebody cheaper. And that's what's been going on for years. It's not new. And I think you get to a life stage where you want to give back and leave the industry in a better condition than you came into it. So we decided that we were going to be a mission-based company, and we were going to employ people with 25 years of experience, and the ones that have sewed their craft over many, many years. And we were going to look to put them back to work, and at the same time, to become more attractive to helping clients grow in that 50 plus cohort.
That's interesting. You were just talking about 25 years of experience. What experiences in your earlier agency life shaped the way you wanted Geezer to operate differently?
Watching a lot of bureaucracy and bullshit, right? I mean, the industry, I hate to shit on it because it's been good to me in my life, but there's just a lot of nonsense. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors. Let's fill up spreadsheets with a bunch of people that are unnecessary, and let's sell that through to a client as it has to happen. We need 6 teams on this, and we need 7 account people. And you know what? It was the bureaucracy and the bullshit that just led you to realizing that we don't need to operate that way. I mean, you can have an efficient operating model that captures the best of the best, right? We can put the best talent on the best brief, and deliver it profitably, oftentimes at a cost that's the same, if not less than what, another agency. Like, this is the modern world. This is my apartment that I'm in, right? I don't need a fancy office on Madison Avenue with, $100,000 a month rent. You just don't need it anymore. So.
And for the benefit of those listening but don't know much about Geezer yet, can you talk a bit about your model?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the thesis of the agency is really simple. That it starts from us. We're anchored in experience. So we believe clients deserve experienced people, and they deserve the masters of our industry to be working on their business problems. Clients, I've been a client. I was a CMO at a large travel services company for about 4 years, and business challenges for clients are finite now. So what we've realized through that process is you need the most experienced people working on your business problems in order to solve them efficiently. And then at the same time, we have, on the other flip side of it, we have an audience that has 70% of the disposable income in the United States is Gen X and baby boomers. Yet we have still are getting creative briefs from the clients that say 25 years old, and that monster opportunity is just being ignored. So I think that, we have the opportunity to, one, educate a client on a missed growth opportunity and an ignored segment of the market. And number two, to be able to put the people that are specialized on their business in order to deliver the results and the solutions that they need. Like, we can't put generalists on specialized problems anymore. And that's, kind of the thesis of the agency is it really is as simple as that, right? It's just put the most experienced people from the category that you're in on your business to solve the problems, as opposed to, the flip side is you walk into an agency and you go to the creative floor, you have a brief, and you just want to find who's available to work on that project. It has nothing to do with what their specialty is or what they're great at. It just so happens that the two 26-year-olds sitting in the corner that have been there for 6 months are available because all the experienced people that are even left in that building are on pitches, right? So it's that simple.
What are the biggest myths brands believe about older consumers that you set out to disapprove?
Oh God. The biggest one is that they're stuck in their ways and that they're loyal. I mean, we used to look at the consumer journey as a funnel, right? And that was every single meeting you were in was here's the stage they are at in the funnel. And then we started looking at legacy over time as a funnel. And the old adage was if you can get them when they're 18 or 20 and you can create loyalty, they'll stay loyal with you throughout their entire life. And that's the biggest fallacy ever. Maybe once upon a time, that was the case where the older generation were brand loyal and you didn't want to advertise them because you couldn't motivate them to change. But that's never been more false. And that's probably the biggest fallacy about the older cohort. And then just that they don't spend like young people do. I mean, it couldn't be more opposite. Like we said, like $8.3 trillion is what the Gen X and boomers command in consumer spending right now. And if you want to make yourself feel a little bit older, millennials start turning 50 in, under 5 years. So that 8.3 trillion, the spending power, goes to, I think it's 12.6 trillion. That's a big chunk of change that, a lot of people have misunderstood. So there's a lot of growth potential out there for marketers.
Absolutely. And when you say all this, it all just sounds like common sense, right?
Turns out common sense isn't very common.
Why aren't more people, marketers, thinking like that? Why is everybody running only after the young consumers?
It's habitual. It's a lot of things. I mean, people aren't rewarding risk takers anymore, right? And marketers, it's funny that I always said that probably like if you interviewed people on the street, their perception would probably be that marketers are always, out in front of trends and But the reality is they're kind of the last to the game, right? They're not out in front of things. Procter and Gamble has their way of marketing. They have their way of testing their advertisements before they go to air. They have a way of evaluating whether they were successful or not. They have a way of writing their briefs, right? And they're stuck in that way. So if you're a Procter and Gamble marketer, what are the odds that you're going to go to your CMO and go, you know what? I think we should fuck all this up and get after the 50 plus segment. You just stuck your head above the clouds, right? People aren't taking risks anymore. And in this environment, it's even worse because there's so much uncertainty globally and especially in the United States. So you have, what are the odds that somebody's really going to stick their head above the clouds and take a risk that way? And then I think it's generally we're not rewarding a lot of like great behaviors anymore. We're just playing it safe, stick to the same playbook, don't rock the boat, and get on with it. And hopefully you're not part of the next round of layoffs, right? Because that's a big motivator, right? I have a friend of mine that's works for a company. I won't say his name or the company that he works for, but we've spoke at length about this. That why haven't you done this? It is like because I have a family to feed and a mortgage. And the organization just laid off 10,000 people 3 months ago. So I'm not motivated to change it up.
It's just mind blowing. In a recent podcast, I remember you had said something to the tune of mentorship has left the building. Can you elaborate on what's been lost as agencies have shed their most experienced talent? Even this week, we have seen so many job losses. What happens to creative quality when you have a 27-year-old trying to sell to a 52-year-old without really understanding their lived experience?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things is that, and this is where I want to make clear as well that we're not anti-young people and anti-talent. You hit the head up, you hit the nail on the head that I feel pain for them because they don't have the adults that used to be in the buildings to help sew their craft, right? We're getting to solutions. Clients want solutions quicker than ever. So, we've now got you just don't have the mentorship that we used to observe and to see happen and to see, we used to have timelines where we would say to clients, we'll get back to you with our first response to your brief in 8 weeks. I think now if you said 8 days, you'd get laughed out of the building. But that was part of the process was no, we need to really scrutinize this. We need to sweat it. We need to think about it when we're in the shower. We need to come back and we need to build a war room with 97 ideas at the beginning and have all the teams scrutinize them and poke holes at them. And, it's just reminiscent of if you haven't seen the documentary Hero Dreams of Sushi, I mean, watch it. That's mastery at its finest. So those people have left the building and we're now, we're hiring executive creative directors that are 36 years old. And they just don't have the experience. They have the talent. I don't want to take that away from them, but they just don't have the experience. And don't take my word for it. I mean, I've said in a million of these interviews that the mecca of creativity used to be the Super Bowl. It's now the biggest dumpster of some of the worst waste of clients' money that I've seen on the planet. It used to be that we would gather in the main boardroom in an all-staff meeting on Monday, and your head of strategy and your creative directors would comment on just how unbelievable that insight was that was unlocked. And, their director selection and that treatment on the film that the director went through a painstaking process. There were no celebrities in ads, right? And now it's how many celebrities can we stick in an ad? It's a lazy idea and we crank it out and we push it out the other end, right? And that's a shame. It really is because creativity has taken a big hit for sure.
Yeah, that's a shame indeed. Brent, like you said, Geezer operates as a purpose-built agency, hell-bent on helping clients unlock the most lucrative market in the world. Can you walk us through your teams? How do you structure them? Are you full service or do you specialize in certain capabilities?
Yeah, no, I mean we're a creative agency first. We're not a media company. We're all full service and everything's bespoke, right? And this is where you get to a business model that again, our business model is so simple it's painful, right? So if I have Nike pick up the phone and call and they say, I got a juicy problem to solve, this is, we're coming out with this new series of running shoes and for the 50 plus marathon runners, and we want to get after that problem. I'm not restricted by the people that I have because I don't have employees because we don't need employees, right? The freelance market is so vast with so much talent. These people, we know them, we've worked with them, they're great, they're fantastic. So everything's bespoke. I might say to the CMO of Nike, do you want three creative teams all from the running shoe area, or would you maybe want one team that's an outlier? Maybe they come from an adjacency, maybe from fashion, right? So we come up with that together with our clients as opposed to saying, here's Steve and Susie that are going to work on your brief, right? And you don't have a choice. So then we come to them and we propose the teams that we're going to get to solve it, right? Here's the strategist, here's the team that's going to get after this problem, and we get after it. And we cost it appropriately. Everything's transparent, right? We don't do hours, right? Ours is a fool's game from a business standpoint. It's also a smoke and mirrors game when it comes to dealing with your client. You're motivated to be slow and to have too many people working on it in order to make money. Whereas we just price it out appropriately. We give them the costs associated with it. We have our markups. You don't have overhead because we don't have that Manhattan address I told you about. And we get after it. It's an efficient model. Like I said, it's so simple, it's painful. Like, why do we complicate things? Why do we need layers of account people? Right? You just don't, right? It's just filling seats.
Many folks I've spoken to in the last few months are pretty certain that the pricing future of the agency model is outcome dependent. Would you subscribe to that thought, or do you think there's still room for a classic monthly retainer model?
It depends on the client. I mean, everything's bespoke. Uh, we don't require retainers because I don't have to staff up your business and pay my Manhattan rent, right? So our business model is more flexible, whereas a client might say, even though you're a freelance model, I want that team on my business for the entire year. Okay, now we're going to have a discussion about a retainer model. So again, some are for it and some not. Outcomes based is interesting because to truly be outcome based, you don't want the middle marketing manager to affect your outcome. So why I say that is if you say we're going to make your compensation model significant portion of it based on outcomes, I believe strongly in putting skin in the game. It sends the right message to your client. But where it falls apart is that if we're saying this is your solution, but some middle marketing manager is saying, yeah, I don't want that idea. I'd like you to execute this. Well, now we can't be outcomes based because now it's out of my control, right? So I can only control what I can control. And the other thing that you run into with outcomes based things is just that I don't set your pricing, right? I don't imagine being outcomes based with Bud Light 2 years ago, right? Well, the marketer that made an error that tanked
Yeah,
the
yeah,
business,
yeah, yeah.
you had no way to control that. So, but I do think again, when things are bespoke, that between a client and a transparent agency relationship, that you can get to better solutions for how to compensate. We're up for anything. I mean, a lot of agencies back when they used to sometimes they would take equity in the company. So if a startup needed help and they had some money, but they didn't have enough money to get the job done. I've worked at agencies that are like, great, let's come up with an equity position. Then we'll take 10% of your company, we'll do all the work. And that's a very entrepreneurial way of getting compensated. And for the right situation, it's the right solution. But what I can say in addition to that is that this old model of hours based, though, I mean, it should have been gone 20 years ago. The reason that we're in this predicament is the refusal to have changed that model from both clients that refuse to change and agencies that refuse to change. The reason we're in this predicament and so much talent is on the street is because that business model wasn't flexible. Just was, this is the only way we do things.
You've been featured at the Fast Company Innovation Festival and covered by outlets like AdWeek as one of the indie agencies to watch. What's the pitch that's resonating apart from what we have discussed already? What are you telling potential clients that's making them sit up and pay attention?
It's just being transparent and honest. I think where we're impressing clients early days is I think we're just refreshingly adult. Right? We're not here to smoke and mirrors. We're not here to pull the wool over your eyes. We're here to help you as a growth partner. I don't even want to be called your ad agency. I'd rather be called your growth partner, right? I've got a lot of world experience, and so do my partners and the partners that we keep. Put us at the table to help you solve a juicy problem. It might not be an ad, right? It might be an operations idea, right? It might be a software idea. It might not make us any money, but just that refreshingly transparent approach is getting us to avoiding pitches. Like, oh, what do you need to pitch for? Right? It's just ridiculous. But that's really the simplicity of it, is that what's resonating is just the honesty. There's no shortage of agencies that can do the work for you, right? It's who's the company that you want to keep. And what we're resonating with people is it turns out that they're wanting our company. So that we hope continues on to be successful. I mean, we're not even coming up on a year, and we've got some great foundational clients. We're doing some great work, and we're in third, fourth rounds of conversations with some great clients, and that seems to be what's resonating.
All right. Brent, how do you open conversations with prospects who have historically ignored the 50 plus demographic that we've been discussing?
Facts, right? I mean, like I said, and I don't, and I feel bad sometimes, and I was a client, so sometimes you can just get tunnel vision, right? And we talked about the habitual nature of marketers and what have you, but you're going about your day and you're just cranking. But the fact of the matter is Gen X outspends Gen Z by at least 10 to 1 with alcohol sales. That's just a fact. Like, beer companies and spirits companies are still putting 25 years old on their brief because they believe that if you can get them to drink in their early 20s, that they'll stay loyal to you, like our last conversation, forever. And that couldn't be further from the truth. The fact of the matter is they're not even drinking. There's no shortage of research out there that shows that Gen Z are smoking pot and staying home. They don't go to nightclubs. They're not going out, and they're not, drinking alcohol like we used to. But we are. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is, why would you ignore in a declining segment? I mean, if there's one business you don't want to be in right now, it's any kind of alcohol. It's declining. Um, and it's the same for, other industries, just facts. Fact. My wife goes to Sephora in Manhattan at least twice a week. So if you're a beauty company, you're chasing kids that have allowances instead of my wife that'll spend $1,000 at her dermatologist on her Botox, right? I'm I'm telling you where I'm going to chase. The woman that's spending $1,000 a month on makeup might be an area for growth. I'm not saying to ignore the youth. I'm saying that a reasonable portion of your investment in advertising has to go towards the potential growth market that exists. It's on our website. It says it's the $8.3 trillion market hiding in plain sight. I mean, these people, we're not our dad's 50-year-olds anymore.
Do you think beer brands or a brand like Sephora can have multiple demographic strategies? Most brands haven't thought of that so far or haven't executed it.
They're just married to doing things the same way. And there's also the old adage that, I don't know. It was we went through, look at the popularity of Dove, right? And somebody that's authentic to their brand, where they're like, no, we're going to show real women, right? But think of that era, how bold that move was. Oh my God, you're going to put somebody that's overweight and ethnic in your ad, save for a 25-year-old blonde white girl. We just saw the stuff with Sydney Sweeney blow up, right? But that was such a bold move, and that's what I'm saying. Marketers are afraid to take bold moves. Um, I'll give Bud Light some credit, and I know because I know the guys very, very well, and I won't divulge any names, but I know that process was very difficult. But when they put out that pickleball ad for Super Bowl, there was one good ad in Super Bowl, and that was it. And they had, hey, these old people are clever and they're fit and they play sports and they can beat young people and they have pride and like that's what's required to win right now. But it's just such a difficult thing to convert. But just use the facts.
When you're talking to that audience, how do you balance emotional resonance versus product benefit? I mean, there is a world of difference in talking to a first jobber compared to somebody who's been there, done that, older, probably wiser at that stage in life. So, how do you target them?
It's all about the insight. Everything in advertising is about the insight. That's why I always said that the best writers in the world, but they don't want to be advertising people, are comedians, right? The only reason we hysterically laugh at a joke is because it hits an insight. You're like, oh my God, that's me. That's what my wife does. Like it's all about the insight. So it's not about emotional resonance or product facts. It's about what's the insight first. And if it's a product-based insight, you go after that. And if it's emotionally based, you can tag onto it that way. And that's why we've said, like, on our website, it says if you want to get in the mind of a 52-year-old woman, you probably shouldn't ask a 27-year-old man because they don't know the insights any more than if Skittles calls me tomorrow and says, "Hey, we love your experience-based part, but we're not about the 50 plus, but we'd like to hire Geezer uh, to launch our new candy that is aimed at 14-year-old women." Well, you probably shouldn't hire us because I don't even know what language they speak, let alone what the insights are, what they do on a daily basis. It's going to take me, it's I've had clients say to me before, why does it take my agency 6 rounds of creative to get to like one close idea? I'm like, because it took them 5 rounds to figure out what business you're in, right? Like, whereas if you'd have started at the beginning and hired a team that was bespoke, that had the experience in your category and had been doing it for 100 years, I'm pretty sure they'd hit it out of the park in 1 round. Right. And if they didn't, it's because the brief was bad. Right. It just is. Like, it's just as simple as that. The thesis of the agency is just unbelievably simple, and that's the power of it. It's like great advertising. It's always simple.
Well, I'm not going to ask you the favorite app for a 13-year-old, but based on what you have seen and observed so far, what creative formats or channels have surprised you with the best ROI for this older demographic, if there's something like that? Is there
None.
something you can share?
No, nothing surprises me, right? We're in a world where, like I said, there's no marketing funnel anymore. It's just we're in this chaotic world of surrounding people with messaging, and I'm not surprised by the fact that Gen Z and Gen X are completely different when it comes to the way they consume media, but you just have to follow the bouncing ball, right? So some people would say, well, we're surprised that you suggest that Gen X are the best equipped generation to leverage AI. Why are you surprised? There's nothing surprising about that, right? We went from Palm Pilots to flip phones to Blackberries to iPhones. We were at the beginning of the internet, right? We couldn't Google it, right? We had to prompt people. And so there's nothing that surprises me. The generation and the way they consume media is no different than anyone else. It's just they do it their way, right? So because you could ask the same question about what surprises us with the way Gen Z consumes media. Nothing surprises me. They're either consuming it or they're not, right? And I think that's where ad people start to overcomplicate things, right? There's nothing complicated about what we do, right? To do it really well, you have to be talented and you have to have a ton of experience. But there's nothing, we don't have to overcomplicate it.
What KPIs matter most when measuring campaigns for the 50 plus demo? And how do you benchmark success?
That's different. For if you have a company that's already embracing it, they're already going to have a different set of KPIs. They might be looking for a new growth, completely new growth target. They might have, KPIs again are bespoke to the brief. Um, and what's you have to set your KPIs together with your client. You have to scrutinize those because that's where some campaigns go wrong as well. You're evaluating the wrong thing. And this isn't rare. It's actually quite common where you're evaluating the entire wrong thing. But if what I would suggest to marketers that haven't fully embraced that there's a massive opportunity of growth in front of them, your KPI should be a test market, right? So just put a reasonable budget behind a campaign, hire the right people to get after it. And then what your KPI of success looks like is, did it work or didn't it? right? So if all of a sudden your sales are going up with a 50 plus cohort, or you're bringing in new customers that you never had before because you've never paid attention to that segment, that's the magic. There's your KPI.
Right. Because there are so many campaigns, so much work aimed at Gen Z, and all it usually needs or wants is a reaction to provoke them into a reaction. On the other hand, for the older, more mature audience, more than reaction, what you and brands would want will be actual sales, conversions, right?
Again, like I said, I've seen some ridiculous KPIs, and what I've always said to clients sorry, or agency people, I've always said if you want to understand a really weird decision, follow the money, right? Somebody's getting a bonus for engagement for that campaign, right? So all they care about is engagement, right? Like engagement, because it's going to put a pool in my backyard this year if I don't get my engagement, if I get my engagement numbers up, right? So I've always said that's the other funny thing is with clients is like, what are you pinning your bonuses to? Because that's the behavior that you're going to get. Um, and once you realize that, that's when you have the ability to talk about should we be shifting our bonus structure to evaluate new KPIs around growth. Everybody's looking for growth right now, right? We scrutinize the stock market is scrutinized on a minute by minute basis now. We used to, my dad's era would check the newspaper once every 3 months to see a stock ticker and whether they were performing. And then the inception of the internet was you'd hit the refresh button. But it was still about quarterly earnings reports. We're scrutinizing companies now on decisions on what came out of a CEO's mouth in a speech. We're tanking hundreds of millions of dollars of shareholder value and catching the
Forget
upside on
that,
that
a
dividend.
Reddit post, a random Reddit post is
Yeah,
making and breaking companies.
totally. Totally. Yeah, we're in a different era. This is a whole different world.
Geezer is deliberately staffed by senior practitioners. How does that shape agency culture and daily workflow? Really curious about that, Brent.
It's a get down to business culture, right? That's Gen X we were the original workhorses, right? We, you were in the ad business. Like working weekends wasn't rare. It was, hey, don't show up Sunday if you show up late on Saturday. And evenings were just like you went home after everybody else went home, which was usually, between 8 and 9 p.m. and you were first at the office at 8:30. I mean, we were the original workhorses. So our culture when even though that we're not necessarily in the same office together, our culture is very mature. It's very client or success oriented. We're asking a lot of questions, which is great. We're prompting AI. We're not using AI to give us the answer. We're using AI to get us to a better answer, right? And that culture is it's very progressive and it's very rewarding because we're getting to answers quickly. We're seeing our concept come to life when we get down to solving clients' problems. Um, it's not bureaucratic because of the arrangements. Nobody's afraid of losing their job because they don't have one. Right? So it's interesting. Like it's pretty interesting. So but we're enjoying it so far. It's a good culture.
If a brand executive is listening to this, where do you see the biggest opportunity for legacy brands to get the 50 plus demo wrong? And how should they fix it?
How they're changing it wrong is they're not paying any attention to it at all. So you're in the best position ever, right? I said to a senior marketer, if you throw a test out there into the market for a reasonable investment, if you hit it out of the park, you're the most successful rock star on planet Earth. If you fail, nobody even notices because it was a rounding error for your company, right? So my recommendation always to marketers, take a crack at it. That's your job. Your job is to find growth. It's not to play by the rules, right? It's to find growth. And if you're a public company, it's to inevitably deliver shareholder value. And if you're not realizing it, just change. It's not that hard. Just take a shot at it, right? All you can do is be wrong, and that's okay, right? But as I've said many times, marketers unfortunately are very risk averse right now.
If you could shift one industry metric or incentive overnight to reward better work for older audiences, what would it be?
What I want marketers to pay attention to is the fact that they're ignoring this segment of the market, right? That's the metric I want to see move. I want to see more marketers going after this segment of the market and doing it properly, right? So if you decide to come out with a menopause product, and you're going to go after, perimenopausal or menopausal women, I don't want to see a woman in the garden with white hair, white short hair, sniffing flowers, right? Like, do it properly, right? Show a really fit person that's, going through an issue. Like, it just is what it is. There aren't any metrics that I want to see moved from the campaigns because so few are even doing the campaigns, right? There are very few campaigns going after 50 plus year olds. There might be an execution here or there. But that's the big metric I want to see is pay attention to it, right? I want to see more marketers embracing it.
Right. Can you share an example of, one of your favorite campaigns or ads that actually got it right?
Yeah,
Any
I
campaign?
actually mentioned it earlier. I think Michelob Ultra is my favorite campaign, and the two celebrities' names are escaping me right now. But you know, here you've got two people in their 50s, playing pickleball and challenging young people to play for Michelob Ultra. I think that was super fun. It's based on a fun insight, right? We are the cohort that is still competitive. We still look after ourselves. Longevity is a big thing to this cohort. We all know that. We're not our parents' 50-year-olds. It's totally different. And then the other company that I think is doing a good job, and whether it's just through their ad campaign, is Caddis Eyewear. Actually, it's glasses that I'm wearing right now. If you ever get a chance to meet Tim Parr, he's a fascinating human being that created an eyewear company. And I noticed it by walking by, which is funny enough, one of their only retail stores, and it's probably only 150 square feet and here in the West Village in Manhattan. And it was the first time that I noticed photography properly done. It was these fun, energetic people with their glasses and proper moments in their life. And I was like, oh, finally, I saw somebody that understands how to represent this cohort in advertising and in communications and in photography. And I think they did an exceptional job and they continue to do so. And I hope to work one day with Tim Parr. We've reached out and had a couple meetings with him, and we're kind of courting that idea.
Well, I hope that works out for you, Brent.
Yeah.
What do you think of AI in our industry? Do you think it's a friend or a foe? It's causing a lot of anguish, lots of
Yep.
sleepless nights.
I think we all went through this a couple times. We've been through it with the internet, and it was going to end everything, and we were never going to be able to monetize anything on it. And we went through it with cell phones. I think it was Jim Balsilie's beginning of the end for Research in Motion was when he said, why the hell would anybody need the internet on their phone? Well, that turned out to be a pretty provocative comment as we look back in history. I think that you need to embrace any technology, and you need to do it on your terms. And, I think AI is a fantastic tool to help you get to the better answer, not to give you the answer. If you're using AI to give you the answer, then you're using everything from the past. You're ignoring insight. I use AI on an ongoing basis to just banter back and forth. I'm teasing out insights in my head. My wife's not around, who's also in the business, that she can't help me, and my partners are busy working on something else. So, hey, I'll go at it with ChatGPT, and I find it very helpful. I find it very provocative. Um, and I think in advertise, I mean, there's a broader AI conversation to be like globally in, not just industry specific to advertising. That scares me a little bit. We just heard yesterday that Amazon's laying off 30,000 people. These aren't blue collar, inexpensive, unskilled labor jobs. These are corporate positions. Molson Coors let go 400 executives last week. Target, I think it was 1,500. That part of AI is, yeah, I'm not down with that. I think that we've lost sight of humanity. I think that we become a civilization that is profitability at any and all cost. When's the last retirement party you went to? They don't happen anymore because people just get pushed out in favor of squeezing out that last bit of EBITDA. another podcast. Sorry to plug a podcast. You can edit this out if you want, but if you haven't listened to the podcast Acquired, it's fascinating. And actually it's very intimidating because the first time my wife put me onto it, I'm like, I'm not going to listen to 4.5 hours of somebody talk about the Hermes story. But I'm telling you, it's fascinating. And I listened to the Starbucks story, and it was a live interview for 2.5 hours with Howard Schultz. And he's the last person that I remember giving a shit about his people first and foremost. His philosophy was it's your people first that will then deliver the customer experience that brings customers back, that then delivers shareholder value. And where it's become upside down is it's all about shareholder value. It's inverted. But in the meantime, we're just letting 30,000, no, Bezos, no, you don't let 30,000 people go. Right? These are people that have families. And yeah, maybe it's going to grease another billion in your pocket, but I don't think you need it. And I don't think I get you're accountable to your shareholders, but you can still grow, but you can do it responsibly and you could do it with a conscience. It's not at all cost.
Yeah, and reminds me of Charlie Munger and what he used to say about EBITDA. He used to say EBITDA is bullshit metric.
Yes,
And
totally.
yeah. Um, Brent, you've seen the agency world from multiple vantage points, right?
Yeah.
You've been part of big holding company shops. You've been part of indie agencies. You've been client side as well, of course. And now you're a founder. What's your diagnosis? I mean, and this is a slightly larger question from the AI question we were just discussing. What's your diagnosis of the industry's overall health right now? And are we in a crisis? Is this
Yeah.
another cycle?
No,
What's
we're in a
going on?
crisis. We're in a crisis. Um,
And is this an identity crisis, or is this a crisis brought out by different factors and AI and this and that and so many other things?
It's an everything crisis. It's a crisis from a business model standpoint. It's a crisis from a consolidation and race to the bottom standpoint. It's a crisis in the quality of the work that is going out into the marketplace. It's a crisis in clients deserving more and clients partially being responsible for how we got here. I mean, they can't forget that when everybody 15 years ago started sicking procurement departments on ad agencies was kind of the beginning of the end, right? But we're in a technology crisis. We're in a this isn't fun anymore crisis. Like, who wants to be in advertising anymore, right? Like, there was a time when this was like a God. How did you? We didn't have recruiting departments in HR. It was
Yeah.
people were begging to get into Saatchi and Saatchi. Oh my God, the nameplate of all nameplates. How can I possibly get in that building? I need to know somebody, so I need to find somebody. Like, nobody's
That
doing
was
that
my
anymore.
first job. I was in class 10th in school, high school. And since then, what I only dreamt of was getting into advertising. I don't know
Yeah.
if kids do that anymore.
I don't think so. Um, and maybe maybe this does make me sound like a legitimate geezer, but it used to be fun, right? We used to have fun. We used to socialize together. We used to party together. We used to do weekends together. We used to celebrate the work together. Like, I
And
remember
it
at
was
one point the
acceptable,
divorce.
and there wasn't any talk of that work life, BS.
No,
Yeah.
no, the divorce rate in advertising in the 2000s was like 85%. Right.
That's
Because
a
the people that
metric.
were in the business were married to the business. We love the business. Everybody's like, how have you been married, Brent, to your wife for 27 years? I'm like, we're both in advertising. So we get it. When my wife sends me a text message, 15 years ago at 9 p.m. and say, "Hey, I hoped to have been home by now, but we're going to the bar now after dinner, and then we're probably going to end up at a karaoke bar. I'll hope to be home by 1 a.m." I didn't complain because I understood it. Whereas so many people back then, they didn't get it. They're like, why don't you just come home? Well, you can't. But that's all gone.
Holding companies are scrambling. We've just seen Omnicom-IPG merger or takeover or whatever you may say finally happen. Dentsu is up for sale. Consulting firms are eating agencies' lunch in many instances, and in house creative teams are widespread. What's the path forward for the traditional agency model, or is it fundamentally broken?
So it's kind of interesting, like you said, like this is perfect follow-up to what we were just talking about, that people don't want to work in this business. Like it used to be that people were prideful. You worked for JWT, you worked for in Canada, like when my wife worked for Zig and Taxi. And then you all had your cultures, and we're an agency that this. And when I opened up Anomaly in Toronto, like we are Anomaly, like we're proudly not an ad agency. We're like, there was a sense of pride that proliferated the business. And who wants to say, I'm so excited, I work at Omnicom advertising group? Like they didn't even try to have a name that was creative, right? Um, so you have that issue that is kind of detrimental. The other thing is in-house agencies are a big threat to the agency world, because once upon a time, the reason that in-house agencies never worked was because they couldn't hire the talent that was out there. They all wanted to work at the cool places, right? They wanted to work at Saatchi and Saatchi or Lowe. They didn't want to work for AB InBev, right? But now that's been flipped on its head, because now the WPPs, the holdco jobs are not attractive. All of these guys have been kicked to the curb, and now more than ever, in-house agencies can be developed with top-tier talent that delivers exceptional results. So that's a big threat. And then, of course, you have the people like us. It's the next wave of indie agencies that are just going against, and they're winning some great sized businesses that once upon a time a small indie agency couldn't win. But clients are fed up. So if you're just in the traditional holdco model and still doing business like it used to be, I'd be really worried about the future. Um, and I think that in-house agencies are going to be a big thing. I think indies are going to continue to grow up. But what's going to be interesting is to see what's the cycle, because the cycle used to be Geezer Creative would open up, and in 3 years they'd be 150 people, and then WPP would buy you, right? So what's the history of acquisition? I don't know, because because the holdcos are so worried about the race to the bottom and trying to keep themselves afloat. I don't know that there's a lot of you're seeing PE float in. Actually, that's going to ruin a big thing too. Now you got private equity going, hey, wait a second. What Omnicom and WPP just did by just consolidating all of these things and firing 10 creative directors in favor of one, wow, I'm going to get into this game. So now you got private equity in. And surprisingly, the consultancies have kind of backed off. You know, if you really look at, it was a big deal when Accenture bought Droga. And that was like the thing, all of these, it was the consultancies that were going to be the future, but I haven't seen any of that work, right? I think it worked on paper, but I think in practice it didn't, because the management consultants still thought they were smarter than the creative people. But you put them in the same room together, right? I think that was a failed experiment.
Yeah, the storytelling maybe doesn't work
Right.
in their
Yeah.
part of the world.
I'm pretty sure if I walk into Droga, that Accenture and Droga are completely separate now. I don't think they talk to each other at all. I don't think they're helping each other. I think that Accenture just happens to own a big ad agency.
Yeah, I think they're called Song now, or if maybe
Yeah.
that's a different division.
And funny, I haven't even heard the name Song in a long time.
What advice would you give to a 20-year-old looking to join this mad world, looking to join advertising?
You better have a great 401k.
So
Right?
what
You
about
better
that?
be really good at finance and managing the fact that you might be out of a job at 50, right? But hey, listen, there's still a love affair with this business. Again, we talk about cycles of technology and how the AI thing's nothing new. I suppose businesses and categories and industries going from the coolest to the crappiest back to the coolest. I don't know what the future holds, but I still have a love affair with this business, as crazy as that is. I've said many times the last thing the planet needed was another ad agency, so we started one, right? Like, but that's reality. Like, we didn't need another ad, but we're specialized and we found a niche and we're excited about it. But who knows what the future of this business is? But if you're young and you're creative, get in the business. My biggest advice to a 26-year-old, because they're not there, is find a mentor, right? Creative people are very incredibly warm, talented, and inviting people. So get out there, and if you might have been a fan of, all of the Nike work in the early 2000s, find the creative people that worked on that, reach out to them, ask them to help mentor you. I need an hour of your time once a month where I want to show you some of my work and I want you to critique it, and, find mentors, find the geezers, right? They'll be willing to help.
And my last question to you, Brent. You were talking about Acquired as a podcast some time back, a podcast that you really enjoyed. Do you have any other favorite podcasts to suggest, or any books that you have enjoyed?
You know what? Read about leaders. I mean, the reason that I'm listening to Acquired is you get a lot of insight into the moves that companies made that, as I say, in this risk-averse world, were wowed by, like, I can't even tell you, like the 5-hour Porsche one that I listened to. I couldn't believe half of what I was listening to, but, just push yourself to learn from, again, I said about mentors, like read about the leaders that are just have changed where we are today, and get inspired to try things, get inspired to do something new. And what's funny is I listen and I read very little about the industry, right? I'm in the industry. I want to be inspired by something else, right? And then how do I translate that into what I do, right? Like after listening to Howard Schultz, right? Unfortunately, we're in different cities, but I wanted to give my partners all a hug, right? Let's give a shit about one another. When we bring freelance teams on, let's treat them like family, right? Let's get after solving that in a different way. And I think that if I would have been listening to an episode of, some famous creative director, I might not have got that. So look elsewhere for inspiration.
Yeah, generosity is so underrated.
It sure is.
And with that, I want to thank your generosity,
Yeah.
for being so generous with your time, Brent.
Yeah. And thanks for reaching out to me. No, I've appreciated this very much. Stay in touch, and hopefully you'll see some success stories continue with Geezer, and I'll look forward to our next connection.
And that is a wrap on Brent Rivard from Geezer. I hope you took some notes, or at least wrote them down in large font so you can read them later. Great ideas don't wrinkle up. Next Sunday, the Indian AdGeek features an upper class and a cheeky airline country head. And I'll catch you back here for more ad madness in a fortnight. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who might enjoy it. The Indian AdGeek streams on all major podcast apps. Brent isn't active on X, but I am at Vishal One Mehra everywhere. Hit me up with your feedback. Until next time, keep your creative antennas tuned and your AdGeek flag flying high. Stay quirky, stay curious, and keep geeking out.